Hello, everyone. Greetings and welcome to the eighth episode of season one of our live series Ichi-go Ichi-e, a show where we discuss and present insights about growth, self improvement, skill development, and awareness. Brought to you by Team Bertho and the Youth Exchange South to South, aka Yes Girls Movement. I'm your host, as always, Fahmina Foy Shemonti. To our regular viewers, we meet after quite some long time. And to our viewers who are watching our show for the very first time, we hope you will find something from this show worth to stick around our following ones. As you may have noticed the abundance of color pink in our today's setting of the show, it is because we are celebrating the Pink October. The month of October is celebrated worldwide as the Breast Cancer Awareness Month to raise awareness about the importance of breast cancer prevention measures, along with honoring the survivors, remembering those lost to the disease, and to support the progress being made together to defeat breast cancer. Before we jump into our regular format of the show, I would like to raise another a bit of awareness about COVID. As many of you know, I'm a resident of Dhaka, Bangladesh, and the severity of COVID 19 is dwindling down due to higher vaccination rates and prolonged practice of social distancing, along with other COVID lifestyle guidelines. But we are still not yet out of complete risk of getting infected by the virus. My mother has been tested positive for COVID in the 16th of October and has been following protocols of isolation ever since. So, as you can see, the rates of getting infected by COVID might dwindle down, but the chances are not completely to a zero. So, even though you are vaccinated, please maintain social distancing and wear face masks whenever you are in public. And so now let's jump into our regular propriety. The topic of today's discussion is from self sabotage to self love, the top secrets of our subconscious mind. And our guest for the show is Zarina Tariq, an empowerment coach from Canada. So without further ado, let's welcome Zarina to our show. Hello, Zarina.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. As you can see, how are you doing?
I'm well. I'm well. It's a bright sunny day here, even though the weather is changing in Canada, but it's a good day.
Well, it must be fall, so it must be a little bit chilly down there, wouldn't it?
Yes, yes. It started to become chilly.
Okay. So before we jump into the session, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So I'll do a quick as ever introduction because I'm sure the viewers would want to watch, what the top secrets of our subconscious mind are. But I'm Zarina. I'm based in Canada, in Toronto, and I'm an empowerment coach. And what that means is that I basically facilitate my clients in letting go of those thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors that are holding them back from going towards their goals or from being the versions of themselves that they want to be and from creating the life that they actually want to live. So that's what I do. Just in a nutshell, that's how I summarize what I do and the kind of challenges that I work on with my clients. They really vary, but everything begins with a thought, right? So our thoughts create our reality, and I'm a strong believer of that. So regardless of what kind of a sabotaging behavior my clients come to me with, be it procrastination, be it people pleasing, or seeking external validation, or not being able to set boundaries, or I mean, the list goes on, or health and fitness goals, for example. We basically dig deeper and understand what are those beliefs, those values, those thoughts that are supporting them or holding them back from achieving these goals that they want to work on. So that's what I do. I'm a certified coach by the ICF, which is the International Coach Federation, and I'm also certified in neurolinguistic programming, which is NLP, and cognitive behavioral therapy, which is CBT. And I also have a heavy focus on mindfulness in, amongst the modalities that I practice with my clients. And the last thing that I'd like to share is that the way that, I work with my clients so far has been one-on-one coaching. So, whoever is viewing, you can always follow me on Coaching with Z on Instagram. I'm very responsive over there. And I've also just launched a group coaching program called Step Into Your Power, which where I go through the fundamentals of reclaiming your power with a lovely community of like-minded women and me as your guide and mentor, And yeah, it's a 5-week program. I'll share a little more details towards the end of the session, but I just thought I'd share from the get-go what the different ways of working with me are.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much for that brief yet very informative introduction of yourself. So I'm not going to linger any longer. I'm just going to handle the leashes of the session into your hands, and you can lead it the way you please.
Fantastic. And will I see you towards the end?
Yes, you will. I'm not going
Okay.
anywhere. Actually, I'm going to
Awesome.
be one of your students for the sessions as well. You're not going to see
Fantastic.
me in the screen, but I'm going to be here.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Awesome.
Okay, fine then.
All right. So, hello, everybody. I can't see who's joined in and who hasn't, but hello to everybody who's watching this live and who's watching the replay. And I wanted to take a little bit of time out today and just talk about self-sabotage. And I feel like this is something that so many of my clients have come to me on, and self-sabotage in general, also very specific kind of behaviors and thought patterns. And it's something that really holds us back from being who we want to be and doing what we want to do in our lives. And we tend to find ourselves pretty frustrated, where we're in this loop and we keep finding ourselves in the same place despite us consciously making efforts of moving forward towards our goals. And our goals could be anything. It could be building a healthy relationship. It could be communicating effectively. It could be um, it could be so many things, your health and fitness goals, or it could be just anything. But a lot of the times, there are certain secrets, which I'm going to share with you in the session, of our subconscious mind. And it's basically the way that we're wired, um, that lead us into these self-sabotaging patterns and self-sabotaging thought patterns and even behaviors. And that's why we repetitively find ourselves stuck in this loop where we're not moving forward despite us making a conscious decision to move forward. And it can get frustrating. And the worst impact that I've seen amongst my clients of these repetitive self-sabotaging behaviors, no matter how big or small they are, by the way, it doesn't matter the intensity, like the intensity doesn't matter of what kind of a self-sabotaging thought pattern or behavior it is. But if you're stuck in that repetitive loop, and Lord knows I've been there, and so have so many of my clients, it the worst impact it has is on our relationship with ourselves. And the reason for that is because we start making these promises to ourselves, and we start making these conscious decisions of moving toward our goals, but we still find ourselves in the same loop, and we still find ourselves back at square one repetitively. And with that, we start feeling like we're letting ourselves down, and we start feeling frustrated. And also, we start feeling this almost at times this bitterness and resentment towards ourselves. So it's a really tough place to be in. We make promises to ourselves, and on a deeper level, we know we may not be able to follow through. Making those promises of, I'm going to start this from Monday, or I'm going to start doing this from Monday, or I'm going to work on myself, starting next year. It's a New Year's resolution. But when we keep going into the same cycles of not working on ourselves, not being able to let go of these sabotaging patterns, we feel like we can't show up for ourselves. And it's the worst place to be, because our relationship with ourselves really, really suffers. So, so that's why self-sabotage is just so important, and it's such, it's a topic that's so close to my heart. Um, and I talk about how we want to convert the self-sabotage to self-love, which is probably the polar opposite of it. And the reason I say that is because whenever I speak to my clients, like the 100 or so clients that I've coached so far, the one common element, and even in my personal journey, the one common element that I found across the board is that there's one missing component, and it's self love. And the successes that so many clients of mine have had, which I'm like super proud of, be it in, trying something new, be it, not letting their fear call the shots of their life, or whatever goals that they wanted to work on, be it getting into a relationship, be it, being able to communicate assertively in the workplace, all of those goals, while working on them, the one missing component common across the board was they did not talk to themselves compassionately. They were super unkind to themselves. They were so, so, so hard on themselves. And I've been there. And it's very easy for us to get stuck in that loop of, and that's, go into that rabbit hole of talking ourselves down, especially when, things aren't going our way or things aren't going as planned. And that's why, I chose the topic of this masterclass to be, this live session to be from self-sabotage to self-love, because a lot of the times when we're self-sabotaging, we we're doing it and it becomes harder to tackle it because we're being so unkind to ourselves. And I'll give you a little teaser of what I'm going to share through, the next 30 minutes or so, is that self-sabotage is actually, weirdly and ironically enough, your subconscious mind's ultimate act of self-love. So by sabotaging you, it actually thinks that it's protecting you and caring for you. So it's coming from a good place, but that's just a teaser for what's going to come up next. And I'll dive right into it. So starting off with the secrets of our subconscious mind, I'm going to go over 5 secrets. All right. The first secret is that our mind is not wired to think in absolutes. And, an example for this would be, there's a very commonly known, I'm not sure if you guys know about it or not, but there's a common visual optical illusion in which there are 2 circles. All right, I'll just quickly describe it to you, but there are 2 circles. One is, and they're both the same size, exactly the same size. One is surrounded by smaller circles, the other one is surrounded by larger circles. And whenever this optical illusion is presented in front of, everybody or anyone, and they're asked which circle is bigger, they always choose the circle with, the one which is surrounded by smaller circles. So I hope I hope you're still with me, but the entire concept basically is that even though those circles are literally the exact same size, we are wired intuitively, we are literally wired to always look for a reference set or look for a benchmark. So, and the reason why so many people tend to, and I myself, and I've run this masterclass elsewhere as well, and all of the participants mentioned that, actually showed them the optical illusion. All the participants mentioned that that circle is bigger on the right-hand side when actually they were the same size, is because our mind is constantly finding those reference points, those benchmarks. Even, for example, when we, win a race or we come in first position, we're constantly thinking of, okay, I'm in first position. I'm not, like, we're thinking of the reference set. If you come in third, your reference set could either be, at least I didn't come in fourth, that's not even a position, or your reference set could be, oh, I didn't come in second or first, and then you could feel pretty down about it, right? So the choice is yours. So I think you know what I'm getting at here, because since our subconscious mind is not wired to think in absolutes, it's always looking for a reference point, always. This leads to, and this manifests itself in a way that we're constantly, without even realizing, without even consciously trying to, we are constantly comparing ourselves, our lives, our lifestyles, everything to other people's. So be it our mindless scrolling on social media, or be it, the kinds of accounts we're following, be it what we watch on Netflix or TV, whatever it is, whatever we come across, whoever we come across, we're constantly comparing, because that's literally how our mind is wired. It's literally just how our mind is wired. And it serves a purpose for us a lot of the time. So let's say in the workplace, I coach a lot of corporate clients as well. In the workplace, it serves a purpose of letting us know where we stand, right? And letting us know And it actually serves to an extent as a source of motivation, right? Because when you compare yourselves to other people in your department or other people in your cohort or your batch in academics as well, you're kind of able to understand and gauge where you stand, and then you know how far behind or how, you know, where you want to be. So it's always a good, it's a good kind of, subconscious trait that we have. It serves a lot of purposes. It can serve as motivation, but the issue comes about when we start comparing ourselves and it starts making us feel demotivated. It starts making us go into this thought spiral of not feeling good about our lives, about our lifestyles, about our jobs, about so many things. And it's mainly because of those reference sets that we're comparing ourselves to. And I mean, one way to tackle this, like when I got to know about the secret of our subconscious mind, one way to tackle it is, what kind of information are we taking in through the day, right? And a lot of the times, the information we're taking in is either on TV, but mostly on social media. So going through, and my advice to, you folks watching at this right now, and the viewers watching the replay as well, going through your social media accounts and actually looking through that, are these the reference points? Are these meaningful reference points and benchmarks that I want to engage with, or I want to actually look at regularly? Or is it some kind of an unrealistic benchmark of what the perfect body looks like or what perfect skin looks like, even though it's heavily photoshopped, for example, so it's about really being mindful of what are those subconscious reference points that you're drawing on a day-to-day basis, and how are they impacting your well-being levels, how are they impacting your happiness levels or fulfillment levels. So this is, secret number one. And I hope, it kind of rings true to you, because it really rung true to me when I came across it and I realized that, hey, my mind is constantly comparing, but it's happening on a subconscious level. But now that I know it's constantly comparing and it may make me feel bad at times, I can make a decision and be like, okay, I can choose to change my reference point to a more meaningful one, which serves as a motivator as opposed to something that makes me feel crappy about my life. Okay, so secret number two, we get used to stuff. And this may not sound like a major secret, but the intensity with which we get used to stuff is what makes it a secret for me. Okay. Obviously, if we were to ask ourselves if we were to have the same meal for the rest of the month, like the same meal for lunch for the rest of the month, you would get sick of it. You would obviously know that I'm going to get bored of this. But the reason why this is a secret is that what studies show is that our happiness levels after any, you know, event that actually boosts our happiness, they always go back to the baseline level of happiness after a little while. So these studies were done on people who won the lottery, who people on people who won like $1 million or more, or people who got into relationships, for example, or got married, like certain life events in their life which they categorized as something that boosted their level of happiness. And they did like this longitudinal study of understanding what their happiness levels are over a long time period, and what they realized was that their happiness levels shot up right after they won the lottery, and then just a little while later, they came back down and flatlined on the same point, which was before the event. And now the issue with this is that, and the implication of this secret of our subconscious mind, of us getting used to everything, is that when will we ever be happy? Or when will we ever feel fulfilled and grateful with what we have right now? And that's not to say that we shouldn't stop wanting more, being ambitious. Of course, we want to do that. But at the same time, we want to do it from a space of gratitude, and we want to do it from a space of fulfillment and happiness. And The fact that we get used to things so easily, studies, by the way, even show that your third bite of delicious food is not as good in terms of the pleasure rating that you give it as the first bite. Another question is like, okay, that's what science says, that's what studies show. But how do we counter it? Because if we don't counter it, we're going to have good things happening to us, but very soon after the good thing happens, we will feel exactly how we did before, and we'll basically want something different. So let's say I bought a new car. It made me really happy, but then now I'm back at my baseline level of happiness. And now I'm thinking, okay, I think, I want a Peloton. Or, like it keeps going on and on. It depends on what we find or what we seek or what we get happiness from, what we derive happiness from. But it's basically one of those never ending, endless rat races, right? Which is, it's very easy to get stuck into it, especially in the kind of, you know, um, consumer driven cultures and societies that we're in. But the question that I pose to you right now is how do we make sure that our third bite of that scrumptious food is just as good as our first bite? So that, because us being able to continually experience joy and pleasure actually determines our happiness levels on any given day. And everybody wants to be happy. I don't think anybody I've come across, be it a client or not a client, everybody wants to be happy. We all want that happiness. Whether we like to admit it to ourselves or not, we all want that happiness. But the question is, if our subconscious mind is constantly bringing us down, what do? We bring it into our conscious awareness. We realize that, hey, there's so many things that I can potentially be grateful for. There's so many things that have boosted my happiness levels, but right now I've just flatlined. So the first step is always, and the most important step is to realize it. So just ask yourself after this session, or even right now, what are those things that you can experience joy from and pleasure from? And just being more mindful about it allows us to actually experience that joy and that pleasure and boost our happiness levels. So, one amazing way to do this, by the way, is savoring. We do not savor enough. We just don't. We always want to rush to the next thing that's going to boost our happiness levels. So let's take a step back and sit down and savor. And it's scientifically proven, like for all, you left brain folk watching this, it's scientifically proven that by savoring and by practicing gratitude, we can actually rewire our mind. Because these secrets that I'm sharing with you about the subconscious mind, these are basically how we're wired. That doesn't mean we can't change it. That doesn't mean we can't choose to think differently. There's always a choice. But the first step is to bring it into our conscious awareness. Because when it's subconscious, we don't know it's happening. It's subconscious. It's not in our control. The second we build that awareness, that's when we can choose differently. And that's why, I have like an entire week dedicated in my upcoming group coaching program on building that self-awareness, of really understanding the nitty-gritties, the ins and outs of how you think individually, and then how you can counter that so that you can achieve your goals and you can feel more fulfilled and happy on a day-to-day basis. So I'll share more details on the group program later, but like I just can't contain myself because I've designed it in a way that it's like this 5-week easy to digest group coaching program with a lovely community of women. It's only open for women in this cohort, by the way. And we go step by step to build that self-awareness and then to kind of counter it and see what we can do differently to achieve our goals and to step into that confident and aligned and driven and motivated, empowered version of ourselves. All right. So we get used to stuff. So my response to that is we need to savor. So pick up a notebook every night or pick up your phone every night and just spend a minute or two. Like for starters, you can always increase the time, but just spend a minute or two writing three things down that you experience joy and pleasure in that day, in the last 24 hours. And I can tell you this, I can tell you from personal experience and my experience with my clients, even on your so-called worst day ever, you will still find three things, no matter how big or small, that you experience joy and pleasure in. Just think about it for a second. When you're thinking about it, you're redirecting your focus and you're rewiring your brain. But it needs consistency. It needs us to be constantly showing up for ourselves. There's no magic pill. I like to just, set the record straight with my clients and any viewers from the get-go. There is no magic pill. We are also, another secret of our subconscious mind is that we're wired in a way that, or we seek this magic pill. We seek big change. We seek transformations, quick transformations, which is why we go and overinvest in, let's say, a personal trainer, or overinvest in a really, really expensive piece of equipment, thinking that, okay, now this is going to transform my life quickly. Because we, internally think that the amount of money we're spending on something is equally proportional to the amount of results we get. But it isn't. It's actually equally proportional to the work you put in, to how consistently you're able to show up for yourself, and to how compassionate you can be towards yourself, especially when you slip. And that's exactly what I do with my clients. So the answer isn't in the fancy, expensive Pelotons of the world or the fancy, expensive, top of the line, like personal trainers. I mean, of course, they're helpful for sure. I don't deny that. But the real answer, when we dig deeper, is constantly showing up for ourselves so that we can rebuild that eroded self-trust and we can rebuild that relationship with ourselves. All right, so another secret of our subconscious mind is that we all have an innate negativity bias. And the reason for this is that it's basically how the human mind has evolved over the last so many, centuries. Because back then, focusing on the negative was actually serving mankind, humankind. And the way it was serving us was that it was a matter of life and death back then. So in order to survive, we needed to focus on disproportionately on the negative of something going wrong, and then thinking about it, and then finding a solution. Now we are living in fairly safe environments. I mean, I can't say that like in a post-pandemic world or in a pandemic world, but we are in fairly safe environments. We don't have people around us or animals around us who will give us a run for our life, right? However, the way that our minds have kind of been wired over all of these centuries by our ancestors is that we focus on the negative. We disproportionately focus on the negative. And by disproportionately focusing on the negative, what that does is that it makes the negative seem much more far-reaching and larger than it actually is. So it makes us, it kind of breaks our grounding with reality. It takes us further away from reality. And nobody wants to be living away from reality, right? We want to stay grounded and rooted in what's real, as close as possible. So given we know about this negativity bias that used to serve, humankind once upon a time, but now it no longer serves us because we don't need these kinds of signals. We don't need these kinds of signals that our brain gives us because it's not a matter of life and death, right? So it's almost like having an outdated or an obsolete software or an obsolete iOS still in our subconscious minds. So it's about updating it, because if we were left to our own devices, we would constantly be focusing on the negative. So it's about countering it and not focus on the positive just for the sake of focusing on the positive, because we don't want to go down the route of toxic positivity, but countering it and finding evidence and finding pieces of evidence that also counter that negative with either something neutral or something positive. Either ways, just to get closer to reality. so that you're able to make the right decision for yourself, for your relationships. And this negativity bias has a really bad impact on our relationship with ourselves the most, because it results in, us losing confidence and us thinking that there's certain negative aspects about us or our personalities or anything about us, and we think it's much bigger than what it actually is. And we start resenting ourselves, and we start, eroding into that relationship with ourselves. We lose self-esteem, we lose confidence. And that's partially because of this negativity bias. And the other reasons I'm going to be covering in my group program, and talking about how we can kind of release these limiting beliefs, and what are these beliefs that we formed about ourselves that hold us back unnecessarily. Because a belief is not a fact, and a thought is not a fact. So where was I? So we're talking about negativity bias and how it, yeah, we're talking about negativity bias and how it kind of translates into us losing our self-esteem and losing confidence. And even in our relationships, by the way, we tend to focus on the negative, even in the other person. So by expecting the worst of the other person, by focusing on the worst of the other person, we're not cutting them any slack. By focusing on the worst of ourselves, we're not cutting ourselves any slack. And that is probably not the best, or probably the worst route to take towards overcoming self-sabotage. In fact, it leads us to self-sabotage. So the next time you come across a negative thought in your mind, just ask yourself, is this really, really 100% true? Is this really rooted in reality? Is this fact? Do I have anything to counter it? Or do I have any evidence to balance this idea of myself or other people or how the world works? All right. And finally, the last secret of our subconscious mind is, what I gave you a teaser of initially, which is self-sabotage is actually our subconscious mind's ultimate act of self-love. And why do I say that? It's weird, right? It's ironic. And because self-sabotage actually takes us further away from being able to love ourselves. So how is this an act of self-love by the subconscious mind? And the reason for that is that our subconscious minds, it has a lot of functions, a lot of them. I won't go into all of them, otherwise this will be a 2-hour long session or even more. But one of the biggest purposes that our subconscious mind serves for us is to protect us, similar to the way our negativity bias is also formed. So one of the major reasons, one of the major, purposes that it serves is to protect us. But the issue comes in with what the subconscious mind actually identifies as safe or unsafe, because it protects us from things that aren't safe or things that it considers that are not safe, right? Now, the subconscious mind is wired in a way that it considers unpredictability, anything new, going out of your comfort zone, as not safe. It views uncertainty as not safe. It's the gatekeeper of your comfort zone. It wants to keep you there, even if it's uncomfortable. So even if your comfort zone or the predictable norm of your life is that you're self-sabotaging, you're not feeling good about yourself, you have a crappy relationship with yourself, you're talking yourself down, you're being hard on yourself, you're not able to achieve your goals, pretty morbid picture. Even if that is your comfort zone, your subconscious mind is wired in a way that it would want to protect you and keep you there, because it tells you that, hey, at least you know what you signed up for. At least you know like what's going to happen the next day when you wake up. And this is, by the way, what keeps a lot of us in jobs that we hate. That even though we find it so difficult, and I've been there for years, almost a decade, even though we find certain jobs or certain things that we're engaging in so toxic for us, or they just are not meaningful enough for us, or whatever the reason is, we don't take a step towards change because our subconscious mind is constantly telling us, stay safe. And it's wired in a way to protect us from that change and protect us from that uncertainty. Because once you put an end to that, you have to start something new. And newness is not safe, according to your subconscious mind, which is why we get stuck in these cycles, these repetitive cycles. So almost think about your subconscious mind, or this part of your subconscious mind, like a little toddler, an innocent little toddler who just doesn't know any better except keeping you in safety. So the next time you feel like you're self-sabotaging, you're saying no to new experiences, to new adventures, to experiencing life to the fullest, remind yourself that this is this part of your subconscious mind that's a little toddler, and he just wants to keep you safe. But you have the power to bring it into your conscious awareness and let that toddler know that, hey, I know I know you have the best intentions at heart. I know. And I thank you for being here. But I'll take it from here because I'm the adult and I know a route which will make me feel happier and more fulfilled. Right? So it's about the point of sharing all of these secrets of our subconscious mind isn't to paint this morbid picture of like, if we were to be left to our own devices, we would be miserable. But it's to bring it into your conscious awareness so that you can choose to think differently and do differently, because our thoughts are creating constantly our realities. So if our thoughts are creating our reality and our subconscious is wired to think in a certain way, when we get that thought, the next time you can notice that, hey, I got this thought because this is how I'm wired. And now I can choose something different. And from that space and from that awareness, you can then be something different and you can do something different. Something that you actually feel excited about, something that you're feeling motivated about. And you can start being more deliberate in your life as opposed to feeling like life is just happening to you. Right? So that's basically, it covers all the secrets of our subconscious mind. And most of these secrets take away from how we are able to experience life to the fullest. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, I've shared like a really, really small fraction of what I'm going to be covering in my group program called Step Into Your Power. For anybody interested, feel free to message me and I'll share the link with you. It's actually starting this Saturday. So there's only 2 days left until doors close for registrations. And it's a 5-week group coaching program where I, along with a beautiful community of like-minded women, I cannot wait to start the program already. I was just going through the content and the journaling prompts and the exercises and the tools and the techniques yesterday. Oh my God, I just wanted to start the group program yesterday, honestly. Like, and I get into that zone repeatedly every day because these are things, like, if I may say so myself, these are things that I wish all of us knew so much sooner. Because they're basically things that have worked best with my clients so far. And they're also things that have worked best for me. And they've proved to be life-changing. And life-changing in a way that we're able to step into that confident, aligned, empowered version of ourselves and live life unapologetically, fearlessly, and on our own terms, being ourselves and rebuilding that eroded relationship with ourselves that so many times we tend to erode into, especially when we're, in these cycles of self-sabotaging patterns. So it's 5 weeks, and I'll quickly go over what I cover on a weekly, because each week basically covers a different segment, a different fundamental of reclaiming your power. And these are fundamentals we weren't taught in school or university or even in our careers. But I really do hope at some point in time that they are. But for that particular reason, I've created this course in a 5-week, easy to digest format so that you don't need to waste another second. without these tools, without these learnings, without this wisdom, without this knowledge to help you create a life you actually are so excited to get up to each and every day. So the first week we actually cover how you think. I mean, right now we talked about the secrets of our subconscious mind, which is basically similar across the board, across all humankind. But we're going to go into how do you specifically think based on your life experiences. And we're going to dig really deep and ask yourself questions. We're going to ask ourselves questions which we don't normally ask ourselves on a day-to-day basis. So build that self-awareness like we've never built before. Know ourselves the way we probably never knew anybody before, because that is the most important relationship, right? Knowing ourselves, the relationship with ourselves, because that's what determines how we show up in our relationships, in our career, in each anything and everything we want to do in life. So we start off with that self-awareness. We go into week number 2, which is covering what drives you, really eliciting those abstract notions or those values of what are those guiding forces of our decisions, what really holds meaning for us. That it's such potent work, such potent work. I've done this kind of work with a lot of my one-on-one clients, and they have walked out feeling so motivated, so driven, with so much clarity. And I remember when I did it, with myself, with my own coach also, I was just baffled at the point that, I wish all of us had access to these kinds of tools. Week number 3, we go into how to be able to change our state of mind, even at times instantly. Because a lot of the times we are in a funk or we're just not feeling it. And we mess up certain events, occasions, important ones at that, conversations, or even meetings, because we're just either feeling a certain difficult emotion or either we're just not in a resourceful state of mind. And I'm here to help you and facilitate you for those moments specifically where it matters most, because when you look back and you feel regretful about not being in the right state of mind at that time. So we're here to figure that out for you with some tools that have been life-changing for me. And then we go into how to handle the tough stuff. So how to handle challenging emotions, because this is something that, emotions are something we're feeling 90% of the time, but we were never taught on how to feel them. And instinctively, like I said, our subconscious mind is wired to protect us from pain, to keep us safe. So whenever we feel a challenging emotion, we always distract ourselves away. We always run away. We constantly escape. That way, the emotion festers within us, sometimes even for decades. I've had clients where it's been decades where there have been certain emotions, challenging ones, that have been festering within them because they've been running away from them. But the second we start to learn how to tackle these emotions in a healthy way, we're then able to allow them to pass through us and get them released so that we can feel lighter, that we don't create any blockages and resistance within us. And I'm here by your side. I know it can be scary. I know it can be new. I know all of those doubts and those fears that we get before doing work like this, but you'll have all the support that you can get. And then finally, we end the 5 weeks with manifestation and goal setting so that you walk out of the 5-week course knowing, what you want to do, what you're feeling called towards. And you walk out with this clarity and with this knowledge of what the basics of manifestation are and how to bring into your life those things that you've been meaning to bring in. So it's going to be an amazing 5 weeks. The sessions are every Saturday at 12 p.m. EST, 60 to 90-minute sessions. And that's literally like a 60 to 90-minute investment of time and energy and effort on a weekly basis, which I feel is great. So that's the 5-week program. There are 2 options that you can work with me. One will be in the group setting, and the other option is that you can also complement the group setting with a one-on-one, with a couple of one-on-one sessions. So for anybody who's interested, women only, pop me a message, and I really can't wait to see you on the other side. And there's a lovely community of women, like I said, and me waiting for you on the other side. So that's all from me, guys. And it was a pleasure. I wish I was able to see, what was coming into the chat, but yeah, that's all from me. Hi, Femina.
Thank you very much. That was a very insightful session you just conducted right then. And as you just mentioned, that you cannot see the reactions or the words that are coming from the viewer sections, but I can see the comments and they are absolutely splendid. Before we started the session, I had this feeling that this is a topic that many people from our generation, from yours and mine, are going to be very immersed in. This is something they're struggling with, and this is something they're going to have a lot of questions to, and they're definitely going to seek you for answers. So as you've heard the viewers, this group course, the 5-week group course that Zarina is going to be conducting, you guys can join in and you can knock her in her Instagram account, uh, uh, which is, I'm sorry, can you tell me your Instagram
Coaching
account?
with
Because I
Z.
just followed you today, but I don't. Coaching
Coaching
with
with
Z, right?
Z.
So you can follow Coaching with Z, and okay, you can follow Coaching with Z, and there are many tools through posts, and you can join the course, and I guess that you're gonna get help that you need from her. And so we're gonna not going to wait a little longer. We're just gonna jump into the question answer session. Are you okay with that, Zarina?
Yes, absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay, the first question is Sabrina Shikdar Arfi asked, "What are self-sabotaging behaviors?"
So, self-sabotaging behaviors, I mean, there's so many examples that I can share. Um, but before I share examples, just to kind of define what self-sabotaging behaviors are, and I should have probably covered this in my session. So thank you for the question. It's a great question. And the way let me just put my tea down. The way I define self-sabotage is, here is your current reality. Here is who you are right now, your behaviors, your skills, capabilities, anything and everything which goes into your current reality. And this is your desired reality of who you want to be, what you want to do, and anything that you think or do or feel, or not feel, but anything that you think or do that makes the gap between your current reality and your desired reality increase, that's self-sabotage. So it could be any thought pattern, it could be any belief, it could be any behavior that increases the gap between where you are now and where you want to be. And I think I shared examples already, but just to give examples to support this definition is, for example, talking yourself down, being unkind to yourself. That's self-sabotage. We may not realize it, but it's actually getting us further away from our goals because it's eroding into our relationship with ourselves, and it's not allowing us to be resilient. It's not allowing us to get back up when we fall. And there's so many other examples. There are other behaviors, like we, even in relationships, we tend to sabotage relationships by inciting fights or conflict or ineffective communication, for example, or emotional outbursts. So you want a certain kind of a relationship where you have effective communication, where you're able to talk to each other and confide in each other and be each other's support. But at the same time, you're having these emotional outbursts and you're being unreasonable and you're reacting instead of responding. That is self-sabotage because it's taking you away from that desirable relationship that you would want. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. I hope that covers your question. Before jumping into the next question, I have a question for you, I wanted to clarify something. So the self-sabotaging patterns, they actually incite from fears, right? The fears we have within ourselves. But there is this book I read a few days ago, and there was this. It was a fictional book. There's this character's line, and it was the fear actually helps us to not being careless. When we lose fear, we become careless. So there's this fine line where we try to be careful with our fears, and then that we end up self-sabotaging and somehow just puncture all the ways we can move forward. So when is it that you would suggest that we discover that fine line between being careful and being
The thing is, sorry.
absolutely a panic attacked, anxiety stoked freak?
Yeah, no, I hear you. And that's a great question, Femina. The thing is, our relationship with fear is what matters most. It's not about, a lot of the times people want to be fearless, like have no fear whatsoever. And the truth of it is, we will always, we will have fears. But it's about our relationship with fear, because if we're constantly creating that newness in our life, if we're constantly going towards our goals, it's not as if we're going to be doing the same things over and over again. We will constantly be doing new things, and by doing new things and exposing yourself and showing up and being vulnerable, be it in the workplace, be it in your career, be it in relationships, there will always be some kind of fear. But it's about what our relationship with that fear is. So are we telling the fear, welcoming it, and saying, I know that you have a message for me. What's that message? What are you trying to protect me from? And okay, but without giving into that fear, or facing that, not giving in, but facing that fear and doing it anyway, being vulnerable anyway, showing up anyway, doing those new things which are taking you out of your comfort zone anyway, that means that the fear is there, but it kind of diminishes over time because you're engaging your mind and your body and your soul in something new, but you're not allowing that fear to dictate your life, to call the shots of your life. Now, being fearless, like you mentioned, Femina, like, yes, it serves a purpose. For sure, it serves a purpose, but it's about taking what's necessary, taking that information and those messages from the fear that it's trying to communicate to us. It's trying to keep us safe from certain things. Like, for example, being vulnerable in a relationship, there's certain fear that may pop up and which may stop you from, fully being yourself and being vulnerable and being open. And really go and interacting with that fear of, okay, what are you trying to save me from? What are you trying to protect me from? From potential rejection, from potential heartbreak? Like, what are you trying to protect me from? And then once you have that conversation with your fear, you realize that you get to choose. Like, okay, it is scary, but what's more important to me is not to not get hurt, but to allow myself to live life fully. So it all trickles down to week 2 of my program, which is basically what matters to you, what drives you, what's important to you. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, Fermina. Yeah. Oh, I can't
And
hear you.
being careful. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I can
So
hear you.
actually, it does answer my question pretty perfectly. I mean, you deciphered the fine line between being careful and self-sabotaging very clearly. Thank you very much for that. So we're going to jump on to our next question, which is asked by Musrat Mritika, and she asked, "I overthink and overimagine things a lot. What would you suggest to take control over this?"
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. And a lot of my clients have come to me with this challenge. And again, it's a self sabotaging behavior or thought pattern, right? Because overthinking is not getting us, the way that overthinking is defined is that it's passive, is that it's going on super fast in our minds, so we're not able to make sense of what's going on, but we're overthinking. And we're not moving towards solutions, we're not making sense of anything, we're not finding patterns, but we're just stressing, worrying, increasing the cortisol levels in our systems, giving ourselves that stress and that anxiety, getting physiological symptoms of it as well, with a racing heartbeat or, really shallow breathing. And all of that is really bad for us because the mind and body is always connected, right? It activates our stress response, and we constantly feel like we're either in fight and flight mode. And that's not a good place to be. It's probably, I've spent almost a decade or even more of my life in fight or flight, and that is not the place we want to be, especially if we want to go after our goals. So to answer your question, Musrat, for overthinking and overimagining, it's about what are those triggers that lead you to overthinking and imagining. So building that self-awareness, like I mentioned, it's really important to build a self-awareness of what is it that's triggering it. So at times with my clients, it's basically anything and everything that's stressful that triggers it, or it's related to something specific. Like, I don't know, let's say some people always think about finances or money problems, and they overthink about it, overthink. Or some people always overthink about certain conflicts in relationship, or whenever they have a conflict with each other, with somebody, and they start overthinking about, what other people's perceptions of them are. So always the idea is to understand what what are those triggers which are leading you to overthink and overimagine? Is it generalized, or is it something specific that's leading you to that trigger? What's the fear? What are you afraid to feel, or what are you fearful of happening? And really taking a look inside. And this is heavy work. This is powerful work, and this is something that I do with my clients. It's best done with the support of a coach, in my honest opinion, and in my experience as well, to really kind of understand what is leading you to overthink and where it's kind of getting triggered from, and when this pattern started, for example. But I can give you one or two tips, like off the bat. And that one is that it's really important when we are overthinking, our thoughts are going really fast, like I said. So we need to slow them down. And the best way to slow them down is to write them down. So I don't know if you're a journal, if you've, been journaling through your life, but start journaling. Do a brain drain of all of your thoughts and just get them all out of your mind on a piece of paper. And what that does is it slows your thoughts down, and it also allows you to make sense of what's happening in your mind. So it slows down the process of overthinking. So the overthinking becomes thinking. So journaling is a really, really great tool that you can use. And yeah, let's move on to the next question. Femina, I think you're stuck. Still stuck? Just gonna wait. Can my self-love show the goal that really I want? I don't think I understand the question. I mean, in a way, if I were to answer it based on my perception of the question, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm misunderstanding the question, is that It reminds me of a quote actually, which is, oh, Femina,
I
you're
am
back.
really, I am really. I think the ones who have been watching our show from the very first day, they already know how shitty my internet connection is, and no matter what I do, it never really recovers. I'm so
Oh
sorry for
gosh,
just
no worries.
vanishing. So I think so. What Ahmed suggested, I was seeing his question, and I think it kind of expresses in an encrypted way. But I think what he wants to say is that if we practice enough self-love routine, would it really show the goal that we really want to achieve once in our lives? I think that's what he wanted to ask.
Hmm. Again, I'm not really sure what that means. So if we practice self-love, will it really show the goal? I think yes. In a nutshell, the answer would be yes. This reminds me of a quote, like I was saying earlier, that, you know, it's one of those chicken and egg kind of things, that to be yourself, you need to love yourself. To love yourself, you need to be yourself. And and to be yourself, you really need to be connected with your truth and what goal you want to achieve and what drives you. So I feel like it's all very, very interconnected. A lot of the times and this is something I'm going to be covering in week 5 of my group program, which is, centering around manifestation. But a lot of the times we feel a lot of resistance around achieving the goals we want to achieve because of that missing component of self-love, because we're being so hard on ourselves. We're, enforcing like military grade discipline. And we think that that's going to get us closer to our goals. And we're facing so much resistance within us and even in the universe around us. We feel so much resistance. And we keep
It's
going
actually
after
kind of
resistance. Yeah.
it's kind of actually implemented on us through our school days. I mean, I remember we had to oil our hair, we had to maintain this particular haircut. If one of the strand from our hair just gets out of our braid, our teacher would just come and cut it out. So I think this sort
Oof.
of military grade discipline is implemented in ourselves from school. So we really don't have much to do about that, because that's how we are brought up, right? I mean, I guess that's how you were brought up too. So
You make
how
a
do we,
really, really
let's like,
valid.
sorry,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry,
Go
please
ahead. You were
continue.
asking a question.
No, I please continue. No, I was saying that this is something that we are taught from our very toddlerhood and to 12 years from now on. I mean, we go into the school, and then this military grade discipline is implemented in our lives for 12 years. So how do we actually get out of there and be something that we want to be? That's actually kind of hard, especially in South Asian school system. So if you have any
Yes,
insight to share,
totally.
I think we'd love to know what you have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a great question, and it's a great point also. It's something that I'm covering in my week 1 and 2 of my program as well, because that's how important it is. Because a lot of the times, yes, 110%, Femina, our life experiences, our socialization, it impacts us. It impacts the way we think, the way we behave. It impacts so much. At times, it impacts us in a good way, and at times, it impacts us in a bad way. So, like what you said, like, yes, having that self-discipline in some aspects, in some ways, is good. It's really good. But when it translates into us being mean to ourselves and not cutting ourselves any slack, that's when it becomes a problem, because that's when it starts eroding our relationship with ourselves. For example, another example similar to the one you shared, like sometimes growing up, caregivers or parental figures, or even in our school, we may get questioned a lot, for example, right? And this I found with a handful of my clients as well, that we get questioned a lot in our formative years. And what that does is that it makes us as adults question ourselves and go into these spirals of self-doubt. Now, there are two ways to respond to such things, right? because we're socialized in a certain way. But we have a choice to make as adults that, hey, these sabotaging thoughts, these sabotaging behaviors and beliefs are not helping me. They're not helping me feel good about myself. They're not helping my relationship with myself. They're not helping my relationship with others. And they're not helping me get closer to my goals. So, what can I do differently? So, yes, we can get socialized a certain way, but we can always make a conscious decision to choose differently. For example, like people pleasing is another example, by the way, especially in South Asian cultures, seeking that external validation and constantly people pleasing, especially for women. It's something that's socialized into our, like into us from the get-go, of how we need to make sure that the energy of the room and everybody in the room is happy, and we need to forget ourselves in the process. But the truth of it is that this is something that it's a toxic habit to have for yourself, because you're losing yourself and abandoning yourself in the process. So even though there are so many of my clients, by the way, and even I myself to this day, I find myself, because of my socialization, because of the kind of culture and society that I'm from, I find myself sometimes in a loop where I'm stressing about managing the energy of the room or making sure everybody's happy and having a good time. But it's not my responsibility. I need to focus on myself, right? So it's the second that happens and I get stuck in that pattern, which is socialized within me, I snap myself out of it. But it takes consistency, Femina. It's possible. I'm here to tell you, as your, you know, empowerment coach for this morning, I'm here to tell you that it's possible. You are able to reclaim your power. It's 100% possible, but it requires consistently showing up. I hope that answers your question, Femina. You're stuck again. You're
And I
mute?
apologize for the.
Okay.
I'm okay now. And I apologize for the trillionth time, and I mean it every single time. I'm sorry
You don't
again.
need to apologize.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Okay. So we're going to go to our next question is asked by Mushidul Alam Bhuya, and he's asking, how different has your life turned out to be from what you thought it would be?
That's a really interesting question. Honestly, Urshidol, I spent the first so many decades of my life stuck in my patterns, in my self-sabotaging thoughts and beliefs and behaviors that I really didn't focus on, or I really didn't pay attention to thinking about how my life is going to turn out, because I was not in a good place personally. I was in a job that I was miserable in. Even in my academics before that, I've always been an overachiever, but for the wrong reasons. So I always felt that by overachieving, it would give me some kind of um, self-confidence or some kind of self-worth, but it never really helped because I hadn't done the work, right? And that's what brought me my journey, is what brought me to, becoming an empowerment coach, because I was just in a place where I wasn't really focused on what my life is going to be like. I was just too busy, stuck in my patterns, stuck in my disempowering thoughts and beliefs. And I thought that I was always going to be that way. I thought that it's something like happiness is something you're born with. I thought that fulfillment and resilience and all of these kinds of characteristics are something that you're born with. I'm not born with it. And I'm just killing time, you know, in life. And that was a horrible place to be, which is precisely, why I now have made it my life's mission to pay it forward. So, to answer your question in a nutshell, I don't want to go on and on about this, but um, I feel like I had never imagined being a coach. I never imagined it, but I hadn't really spent a lot of time imagining what it is that I wanted to do. I allowed life to happen to me to a very large extent. I took the first job or the second job that I got offered. I was lucky. There was a great company. So, I was well taken care of and everything. I learned a lot. But the issue always was the same. I hadn't done the work on myself. I hadn't done the work, the deeper work on myself. So I would constantly be finding something external to fill the void that I felt within me. And when it wouldn't, I would start seeking something else. So I was always in a very, very hopeless and helpless and disempowered place. But I am so grateful and so blessed and just so happy to be given this opportunity to have come across coaching at the time that I came across coaching, and also to now be being given the opportunity of not letting anybody else waste another second feeling the same way that I felt. So yeah.
Thank you very much. That was a very in that was a very good answer. And also, we want to say that the work you do is actually amazing. And I think it is something that we need to implement on our educational institutional grounds, or
Absolutely.
because we learn so many things in our school years, but how much of that knowledge we actually use in our lives? They don't even teach us how to pay taxes. And now I'm getting
Yeah.
older and I'm worrying, okay, how do I pay my taxes within 4 or 5 years? Because I don't know. I knew
Yeah.
how to uh, determine a common denominator. I know how to do integration and differentiation, but I don't think I'm going to be using calculus in my life ever again. If I go to
Gosh.
accounts, that's a different thing, but I'm not. I
Yeah.
I don't think that I'm personally going to be using that. So I think what you do is incredible. And
Thank you.
and I wanted to say the answer that you gave to my question and Ahmed Sajid's question. I'm stuck again. Please don't tell me I'm
I
stuck
can hear
again.
you. I can hear
Am
you
I
though.
am I am I audible,
Yes. Yes.
or am I stuck?
You're
Can you
audible.
hear me, or can you see me?
Yes. Now both. I can
Okay.
hear and see you.
So
Yeah.
I wanted to say, so, the answer you gave to my question and Ahmed Sajid's question before, that was actually something that you interjected during your session about journaling, and also in one of the questions that you answered. And I saw this on your Instagram page, that this post you posted about how journaling actually slows down our thought process, and that actually helps us making sense of what are the things that going inside our head. I always thought that I
Yeah.
was bad at journaling because I cannot pin down every single thing, every single expression, and every single expletive that's going around in my head into my diary. So I thought I'm just bad at journaling. But when I saw you actually what helps going inside my head into my journal, and that is supposed to be helpful, that actually made a lot of sense. So I guess that I'm not bad at journaling. This is the helpful aspect of journaling. This is the helpful aspect of journaling that is going to help me in the further notes of our lives. I think what you do is incredible. And everyone who is watching this
Thank you.
video, I want you to please follow Zareen in her Instagram page. And also, if you think that you would get help, and the course that the group course that she's been offering to us, it's going to be helpful for you. So I suggest that you can enroll it and contact with her, and that's going to be very, very helpful. So that's
Yeah.
I think that's the end of our session for today. So
Thank you so much,
how
Famina, for having me.
did you enjoy the session for today? Did you enjoy sharing your tools and the question answers and the conversations that we had?
Absolutely.
How was it for you?
Very good. Very good. It was amazing. I'm so glad to be given this opportunity and very humbled to be able to share these insights that can potentially be life-changing. So it was great.
Thank you very much. And we hope to stay connected with you. I guess you are familiar with our job at Team Bertho. So, do you have any points to mention about Team Bertho and their works?
I mean, I think it's a great initiative. I love that, especially on your Instagram account. I really love the fact that you bring so many people from across the globe together and share their stories and give them a platform to do that. So, and that's how I initially got, um, that's how I initially got to know of you guys. So I think it's great, and I wish you all the best on your future endeavors, and I would love for it to keep growing and to keep, increasing its presence and exposure across the board. So yeah, absolutely kudos to you guys.
Thank you very much. And the same wish goes for you too. I hope you can help and share the insights and knowledge and teach more people on the days to come, and your venture grows larger and larger than it is now. And to our viewers who are watching, I just want to interject one single point that Bertho Dollar Caravan, our audio station, is launching our fourth season very soon, and it's going to be focusing the stories about mental well-being and physical well-being as well. So as you are following us, as you have been following us on Bertho Dole Karavan Ichi-go Ichi-e, please follow us on our page so that you can get in tuned and get in touch with the new episodes that's been coming. So that's the end of today's note, and with that positive note, we want to say goodbye. Hope to stay in touch. And Zarina, it was a pleasure this doing this session with
Thank
you.
you.
I learned so much. We all learned so much, and I'm getting such positive remarks from the section. I wish I could share some of them with you, but they're all questions, and I guess that and you covered most of them through your session and all the other questions you asked, and I think all of them got real help and some really helpful insights from your words. So thank you very much for being here, and thank you very much to our
I'm
viewers
so
for
glad.
staying together, for staying with us for such a long time. Thank you very much. Goodbye then.
Thank you. Bye.